Welcome to a special video. Now, normally, lately I've been straying away from the wrestling stuff because the wrestling business is kind of irritating me with people not getting pushes that should give me pushes. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about a wrestler that is overhyped, overrated, and old school fans and just some jaded fans in general always talk about Ric Flair. Now, Ric Flair is considered the greatest professional wrestler of all time. The robes, the figure four, the chops, the woos. But I ain't buying it. Here's the thing. A lot of people always tell me, well, Ric Flair's great. 16-time world champion. But what I've done is I've gone and rewatched a lot of his matches. I went and looked at his title history, and here it is. Ric Flair, his title reigns weren't that long in the 90s. So in the 80s, they were a long title reigns. Like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months for some of them. But when you get down to it, he was the booker in the 90s. So a booker, for people that do not know, a booker is somebody who books the matches. And he was the booker, and he would, one Nitro he would win it, the next Nitro he would lose it, and it would just rotate. And he would win titles when he shouldn't have been winning championships. Because one of the downfalls of WCW is you had older wrestlers, whether it be Diamond Dallas Page, Kevin Nash, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Sting to a certain point, were winning world titles when they shouldn't have been winning world heavyweight championships. Now, Ric Flair, like some of his biggest rivalries, people would say would be Sting, which the Sting and the Flair matches I actually like. Dusty Rhodes, Hogan would be one, Ricky Steamboat. Now, one of the problems I have with Flair is every match he ever did was the same stuff. He would do chops, he would get hit, and he would do that step, step, step drop thing. He would have the same match over and over again. And Rick never did anything new. His promos almost all of his promos flowed together. Now, one thing that you could possibly say is he was a Southern wrestler. Here's what I say. In the NWA, he was super successful. Tag Team Champion, United States Champion, NWA Champion, WCW Champion. He wrestled in more WCW main events than anybody else in the world. And he went to WWF, and he was there from 1991 to 94. About 94 is 93 is when he first came back, because he came back in 93 and he won the title. He really didn't do anything. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't think Ric Flair was this great wrestler, because all I ever saw him do was, like, not a whole lot. He got his ass beat by Randy Savage. He had this weird storyline with Savage going to WrestleMania 8, which just seemed like one of the worst jumbled messes of a WrestleMania. The funny thing is, there is reports, and I can't really count on this because they didn't film the matches like they do now, is he had trial matches with Hogan, and they were so bad that they just couldn't make them work for WWF style. And then you had the match with apparently in a steel cage match in September, I think it was September of 1992, Ric Flair would lose the WWF Championship to Roddy Piper inside of a 15-foot high steel cage. There's photos to prove it. There's photos of him holding up the title of Piper. Now, I wish they would have ran with that. To me, Roddy Piper was great. But you see, Ric Flair is one of those wrestlers that people like your Shawn Michaels, your Triple H, the Click, people that were fans of the Horsemen, all overhype Ric Flair. Ric Flair was never anything really special. They didn't really go for it. So Ric Flair is one of these wrestlers that is overhyped. Now, he's in the Hall of Fame twice, okay? But let me just say that, yes, the Horsemen were awesome. But lately I've been watching Four Horsemen stuff, and when I think of the Horsemen that were awesome, it was Barry Windham, Tully Blanchard, who is an extremely underrated wrestler, and Arn Anderson. I never think of Flair. I never think of Ric Flair. Ric Flair is all about those chops, the figure four, but he was very overrated, and I think in the Jim Crockett Promotions they just overhyped Ric Flair a lot. Like, I almost think of him as, it's gonna piss some people off, he was the Ultimate Warrior of the WCW, because both of them have the same matches all the time. Alright, I'll do a better comparison than Warrior, because Warrior is a lot worse. Hogan. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair were the staples of their companies. You had Ric Flair over here, and you had Hogan over there, and both of them had long title reigns in the 80s. Both of them were on all the main events. Both of them had maybe more title reigns than they should have. Both of them have extreme legacies that you just have to, but neither one of them I can go back and watch the matches. Flair and Hogan both had matches that were atrocious. Hogan's best matches that he ever had, I think, were with Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage. Hogan, I really can't think of a lot of top-notch matches I actually liked him in. Same thing goes with Ric Flair. I think Ric Flair he had good people to work with him, but I don't think he was a good worker. I think Ric Flair is overrated. Yes, he is a 16-time world champion. I'm not going to take that away from him, but what I will take away is when people call him the greatest wrestler of all time. I can name 5 wrestlers on the top of my hand that are better than him. CM Punk, Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, Greg the Hammer Valentine was an extremely a better wrestler, and Daniel Bryan. All people that were. So. Alright, so that's just my thoughts, views, and opinions on it. And I will leave it at that before it goes even more of a rant. But to me, Ric Flair was a 4-star wrestler, not a 10-star wrestler like some people would make you think. He was average at best, and he's just Ric Flair.